Hey everyone, my name is Jake Richter, and I have done this project on teachers' perceptions of co-teaching within San Diego. So why investigate co-teaching within San Diego? I came up with three reasons. The first one was a research gap. I saw that a lot of research doesn't really adhere to San Diego schools, in which we have a high English language learner population, as well as high number of kids who are in special ed classes. The second reason is teacher word of mouth. I thought it was very interesting listening to some teachers talk about their districts mandating co-teaching in certain classrooms to better accommodate for the students. So with that, I wanted to see, since there was no research, is that really the right move to do? And then future considerations being, I'm going to be a special ed teacher and I really want to see what is the best systems I can have in place for my students. So with that, we'll get to the introduction. So in the San Diego Union Tribune in 2019, it declared that in San Diego schools, there is an increase of 90% of students having disabilities, while enrollment has only increased by 2%. That's pretty huge, I think, where we're considering there's more and more kids who need additional services, and yet I do not believe more special education teachers are being hired at that rate. With that, funding for schools in California is short of adequate to meet the levels of the goals within state policies, which is alarming for sure. And so with that, I've come up with in what ways is co-teaching successful in San Diego? So with that, we're going to review the literature. And in the literature, it said a small number of ELL and special and students in special ed. So with that, it didn't seem very representative of my data, although a lot of them did seem successful. And some of the successful was because of a relationship that was student teacher and established teacher. So with this, we had an established teacher with their own classroom and all of the agency, while the student teacher is more of a glorified aide learning how to be a teacher. That is not co-teaching. Co-teaching has two teachers that are on equal grounds teaching together. And with that, you could argue it is successful, but is not actual co-teaching. And the last thing they said was parity, importance of chemistry, and co-teaching is considered as a business marriage. And with that, you can get a business divorce, and you have to make sure that the person that you are working with, you actually like and you can actually work with. So methodology, I did a survey with 29 current and former teachers within San Diego. Um, I took the averages of their responses and separated them accordingly from general ed to special to um, both teaching both or haven't taught any teaching something else. And then I interviewed two special ed teachers and one general ed teacher. So for the findings in the survey, I have on the left here two responses to the questions. And the first question is, my school provides adequate preparation for co-teaching practices. And with this, we have strongly agree on the left going up to 5 and strongly disagree going to 1 and 3 being the average. So with this, we have special ed averaging, they don't feel one way or the other, but general ed does not feel comfortable with preparation of their co-teaching practices. And with this, some districts will offer a one-time training or rely on the teachers to find that information for them. And the next question, I feel comfortable working on a lesson plan with a general ed, specialist ed, teaching in the co-teaching setting. A lot of special ed teachers are excited to do that, but general ed teachers don't feel one way or the other, in fact, a little less than average, in which teachers' willingness to cooperate on schedules, lessons, and parity factors is part of success. And if they're not willing to work with the teachers, then it might not be successful. So the next question was, I have sufficient time management and lesson planning. With this, there was lot. Special ed was either or at average of 3, while general ed did not feel like they had enough time lesson planning. So that goes into the question, when they start co-teaching and they lose time lesson planning, how is that going to work out? Where it says here, instructional flexibility as well as parity can affect the benefits of the co-teaching model. So knowing that, is it wise to do co-teaching? The next question, I feel a special education teacher has sufficient content knowledge. With this, they said that the special education can have sufficient content knowledge, but there's also a warning when they don't, because they can slip into teacher-aide relationships, which can have no benefits for the students. So in the interviews, I saw certain themes like lack of resources. I was able to talk with a teacher who said that their lack of resources within the classroom makes it so they can't do their job a lot of the time. And resources meaning stuff to time management, to money, to scheduling conflicts. Those are all resources at teachers' disposal. And if they can't do um, basic gathering of resources, then they're going to have a hard time. Another thing that they suggested was parity, where it's a professional marriage. We had teachers who said, if I'm going to do co-teaching, I need to make sure I like the person. And if I don't, then there should be no reason why I should go into co-teaching. And if I were to go into co-teaching, they said, they would do it for financial incentives. Um, with the next one, they mentioned are expensive and unqualified aid. So with this, we had some teachers say that they have been slipping into the teacher-aide relationship. And with that, some of the co-teachers have said they are just a glorified aide in the classroom. One of them said that they were a very expensive aide, but an aide nonetheless, and not another teacher. Another thing that they said was unqualified. So some who come into the classroom are not qualified to teach the students. And with that, they don't have trauma-based teachings that they can rely on to help students in those situations. So unqualified and untrained is a factor with this. And then the last thing they said was administrative training, where the roles need to be established and in cement as well, where there is no mix-up on who does what. So some other statements that the interviewees made were workload challenges during co-teaching, where co-teaching can become challenging because they've already have over caseload in special ed. And not to mention the classrooms are getting bigger with not only students, but students in special ed. Um, they've also commented that the students in special ed have about 50 other kids who are in special ed in inclusion classes. And with that, they found their kids to be intimidated, where they do not want to answer questions. Um, we had a couple, we had 2 people who said that their students do feel intimidated in inclusive classrooms. Um, and then training. We had a teacher with 25 years of experience state that they felt like they did not have the proper training to do an inclusive classroom. Even with a special ed teacher in the classroom, they do not feel like they are qualified to do an inclusive classroom. And with that, another teacher said, there is a time and place for inclusion, but it's not the Bible as it used to be, or at least we used to thought or think. So possible solutions from the interviewers were like, what is a least restrictive environment? We have to think of more of the social factors as well, they were saying. Some trends of students in inclusive classrooms, so making sure they're still doing their work, making sure they are social, emotional, okay as well to participate in classrooms. And then financial incentive for teachers. There is more work behind co-teaching. With that, it should be easy to say that a financial incentive would be nice for the teachers who are being involved in that. So in conclusion, teachers are not comfortable sharing a classroom, applies to scheduling, content knowledge, or lack of time management and planning. Current data does not relate to San Diego's diversity. So these teachers had a high population of students in special ed and inclusive classrooms. So that was kind of hard for them to really understand co-teaching when these co-teaching models do not represent that. And although this data is very limited, um, it still has some implications. Some possible solutions were teacher education, more content knowledge for co-teachers, proper training on what is and what is not co-teaching, and then inclusive practices, where we re-examine how inclusion can benefit or hinder students. Suggestions for future research include inclusive classrooms, where we look at the amount of special ed kids and like what is the factor of how many kids does it take at what percentage per capita, where too much is too many for the teachers to handle or for the students to handle and be successful in the classrooms. Another one was student disposition. I think it's very important that we understand that these kids do understand that they are in like these the blue group and the red group, and they understand the connotations behind that. So student disposition in the classroom and inclusion classrooms in particular, I think is very important to figuring out the best ways for academic success for students. Here are my resources, and I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who is watching this right now. Thank you to Dr. Herrera, Suzanne Stoltz, um, Dr. B, and appreciate you all. Take care.